Hello, I'm Kelly Cervantes, and this is Seizing Life. So often we want to make a difference but don't know where to begin. On today's episode, Andrew Sterr will share how he is making an impact on epilepsy awareness through his running team, the Brain Troopers. Andrew received an associate's degree from the Fox Valley Technical College and is now attending Illinois State University for his bachelor's degree. His many interests include, but are not limited to, horticulture, firefighting, stained glass art, running, and of course, epilepsy advocacy. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me today to chat about your experiences.
Thanks for having me, Kelly. Glad to be here.
So having witnessed my daughter's seizures and how they've racked her body and her life, I am always in just complete and total awe of people who are diagnosed with epilepsy and continue to live life to the fullest and don't let it stop them. Can you tell us about how epilepsy entered your life?
Well, so one thing that a lot of people aren't, aware of is, the types of epilepsy, the types of seizures. So many people are, drifted to think that it's, drop on the floor and start having convulsions when that's not the case at all. So for a long time, before I started getting treatment for epilepsy, I was having seizures that I didn't even realize were seizures. The earliest one I can remember myself having, I was in, I believe, the third grade. And let's see, what are you, like 9, I think, in the third grade. And we didn't start treating them, however, till around 2008. And because, like I said, for a long time we didn't realize they were seizures. They were pounding headaches that I thought was just because I didn't get enough sleep, which was the cause of them. Which is a cause of, many types of seizures, is lack of sleep.
So what did they look like?
Almost more like a stroke type of appearance. Like I'm just kind of dazed out, not very, verbally responsive, extreme headache, like a 9 out of 10 scale. And the best cure for it for me is just I have to sleep it off. So, and I can sense when I'm having them. So in a way, that's almost a blessing. I can, feel that I'm dysfunctional and prevent myself from doing any sort of activities that can, in other ways, harm me if I were to have the seizure while doing so.
And what is that seizure type called?
Partial seizure or non-convulsive seizure. There are a couple different things they can be called, and that's, like I said, just such a thing that people are unaware of is how broad of a topic it is. That
Absolutely.
There's so many different kinds. It happens in so many different parts of the brain. It's not just
the grand mal that
right.
everyone is familiar with.
Exactly.
And you mentioned your first memory is having the headaches when you're in third grade. At what grade were you in when you finally got the epilepsy diagnosis?
When we officially started, seizure treatment would have been in about the 8th grade, I want to say.
So that's 5 years.
5 years.
Of having seizures, and you didn't know that they were seizures.
Exactly.
So how did they diagnose you? How did they figure out that that's what it was?
So for a long time, we didn't, like I said, most people think seizures are convulsions. So that's why that didn't even enter our minds, me and my family. So that's why something wasn't done right away.
Of course, I cannot even imagine your parents, if they had known that that's what it was. Of course they would have, but and I think that speaks to the lack of education and knowledge in the general public, that we don't, that the general public doesn't understand that there are other kinds of seizures and that, having these insane headache, and also, being 8 years old, how well can you actually articulate and verbalize what's going on?
Sure.
So, no discredit to your parents in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely not.
But what was that experience like when you finally got that diagnosis? Do you remember what you felt when you heard the doctors say that it was epilepsy?
Well, I certainly didn't want to hear that it was epilepsy. And at the same time, it was nice to know what the problem was at that time. Because, like I said, those 5 years, I didn't know what, I figured it was just the only solution was that I wasn't sleeping, and so, that's where there was that sign of relief, like, now we know what the problem is and where to go towards it.
And have you found a treatment that works? Do you have seizure control?
I do have seizure control, so
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm on medication right now, and we were slowly increasing the dosage of it, and this past summer, I actually did have a grand mal seizure that, for me, I've had, I want to say, like 4 in my entire life grand mal seizures, and usually it was from the lack of sleep or a missed dosage, because missing dosage is the #1 cause of an epileptic having a seizure while they're on treatment. So I had been in the car with my father, and he was driving, and I had a grand mal seizure, and this one in particularly for me was even more frightening than the other ones. So it was after that seizure that I had, we saw my neurologist again, and he upped the dosage and divided when I'm taking the dosage, and since then I have been 100% free. So
that's amazing.
Not even the slightest of headaches.
Epilepsy affects 3.4 million Americans. Learn more about cutting-edge epilepsy treatments and research at cureepilepsy.org. Now back to this episode of Seizing Life.
Within the epilepsy community, stigma has been very well documented and discussed. Have you experienced any of that in your life?
It's kind of depends on the situation, that I might be stigmatized or not. A lot of times it might be with employment. It's something there was one job that I had been working at. I kept it under the table. And as I had one point been talking with one of my coworkers, when I like to, bring out how under control I am, what had happened to me, and how successful it's been. And he's like, you can't mention that, or else you're going to be laid off, no question about it. So, I had to keep that, under the table. And fortunately, it was a temporary job, so I was able to ease away before, costing myself, any sort of problems like that. And so it's mostly the employment type of thing that, has me under pressure. With school and education, if anything, I almost find that more of the place to inform people and stuff. Like with my, professors right now at Illinois State, one of the first things I do at beginning of semester is I go to their offices, sit down with them, talk to them, explain myself, my condition, it's under control, what they should look out for if it were to happen and everything.
And are they usually fairly responsive and open to the conversation?
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
It really is. I mean, I'm really satisfied with how open and wanting to, work with me. My first year at Illinois State, I had an exam for one of my classes, and this was before I started informing my professors, and that morning I had a seizure, and it was the day of an exam, so I needed to take the exam. So I sealed it up, and then I went to my professor's office, and I said, I'm like, you're going to realize what the grade was, and it's only because I had a seizure earlier. And it was her that suggested, Andrew, go to this part of the university, and they will help you have the accommodations that I need for the epilepsy.
And what part of the university was that?
It's just the access and accommodations department.
So that if you do have a seizure, you can make those accommodations, that you don't feel forced to having to take that test the same day as a seizure.
Exactly. So I'd have an excused absence, unexpected. So I go to my professor and say, I wasn't here for the exam only because I had a seizure this morning, and they're very forgiving and understanding about stuff like that.
What motivated you to be public about your epilepsy, and why take that step?
So with realizing how traumatizing it is and just how broad it is, there's so many, variables and elements to the disease that, need to be, researched and need to be, funded to improve and come up with a cure for the disease and stuff. And that's what really upsets me is, what a minimum amount of money goes into research to find a cure for the disease, for how common it is. It's so much more common than people understand. And it's stuff like that. So it's one thing to know somebody with epilepsy and, but to live with it yourself and be as under control I am, it makes it easier for me to, get out and, explain and say, I know what this person is going through because I've lived it, and that's why, I need to do something to help.
We are all so incredibly grateful for you that you are. So tell us about Brain Troopers. Where did this come from? How did it get started?
For a long time, I had been wanting to get engaged with, because you hear about, cancer walks and all sorts of stuff like that. And I told myself and other people, I'm like, I'd really like to get involved with an organization and start helping more and stuff. And that's where the event that happened this summer really caused me to do something about it. Because like I said, I've had 4 or 5 grand mal, and this particular one scared me. So that's why after that, I'm like, you know what? I need to start putting my feet where my mouth is and, get engaged in finding stuff. And I did a bunch of research on, walks and races and stuff. And like I said, very minimum stuff. And I found a half marathon that I'll be going to in North Carolina in February. And it's called Race for Epilepsy. I'm like, well, this is great. This is, exactly what I'm looking for. And I was a runner in high school and then kind of, stopped for a while when I was in college. And it was when I saw that, I'm like, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity. I'm going to start running again, and it's going to be all for epilepsy. And I was, as I'm developing a name, kind of, I'm like, what would be a good name for my team, because I wanted it to evolve, not just be me, but I'm trying to bring other people into it to, because that's the only way we're going to make more for funding. If it's just me in the race, that's, and being a college student, how much can I actually put towards, versus if we start expanding and bringing other people in and bring it all over different places. So even if a race isn't for the team, have, a team for the race, so start, expanding and developing. And I had, when I developed the name, it was originally called the Brain Warriors. I needed to obviously incorporate epilepsy in the brain, and it didn't have the ring I was looking for a team name. So I went to thesaurus.com, and I'm looking for, stuff of synonyms of warriors, and troopers comes up. And I have a sibling in the Army who's in the paratroopers. So when I was including brain, I'm like, you know what, that it just
That's
clicked.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, the Brain Troopers is absolutely perfect. So
I love it.
I had somebody design the logo for me and everything, and it's, related to the Army, because I had once considered military, but obviously with epilepsy,
because of epilepsy,
exactly,
you can't join.
I am prohibited, yes. So that's why I still do everything I can to also, represent the military too.
That's highly appreciated, especially since there's, Cure is working on a study for post-traumatic epilepsy, which is a huge problem among our veterans.
Absolutely.
They're coming back with brain injuries, which lead to epilepsy. And
people don't know that because it's it's not, to people's awareness, and it's underfunded to pay for that type of research on those people who are defending our country, coming back in this disease that's, so common and so severe, and there's, there's only treatment, there's not a cure.
No. So you want to develop a team of runners, and where do you see the organization going? Where do you want it to lead?
For right now, I just like to be a team traveling together to events. Have the Brain Troopers registered as a team in the Chicago Marathon and the Marine Corps Marathon, and so just kind of that. Eventually, I think it would be very exciting to have races for epilepsy versus just the team representing epilepsy. And where I'm living in Bloomington Normal, maybe develop a Brain Trooper 5K, and all of the, the community comes together, so we eventually evolve into something like that. I feel like would be, very exciting, and it'll take time. It's not happening next year.
So if people want to get involved with the Brain Troopers, run with your team, or try and get someone from the team to run in a race that they're hosting, how can they get in touch?
People can go to events at cureepilepsy.org, and they'll be able to be in contact with someone there who can then coordinate with me and one of their employees with how to continue to expand the team and make it, more than it, needs to be.
Amazing.
Make it better. Yeah.
So cool. So, and what has the Brain Troopers meant to you?
It's certainly brought back a lost, passion of mine. Like I said, I was in cross country in high school and drifted away, and it's really brought back that. It takes so much, hard work and effort to do, extremely long distance running like that, and to relate that to, epilepsy. It's not a one-time, small thing. It's a marathon. It's
Yes.
a long, term, long distance, type of thing to deal with.
And what advice would you give to somebody who wanted to get out there as an advocate, who wanted to fundraise, who wanted to get involved? What advice would you give them to get it all started?
Google.
Fair.
But, seriousness in that, because to get to where I'm, still developing and becoming, it took so much, research and stuff, and that's very unfortunate that I had to work so hard to find something to get organized and involved in. It's not you don't hear a conversation about it, at the grocery store or something. I had to dig for, organizations and events and how to, participate in them and who to contact.
And Cure helped you a lot
Absolutely.
with that. Once you got going with them, they sort of had a team that
Absolutely.
has helped you put that together.
Of course, yeah. No, I love the industry. If I weren't a college student, I'd be giving a lot more to the organization, and that's where something like the Brain Troopers comes in. It is my way to give to the organization and to the disease without breaking my wallet too. So
of course, and bringing awareness and
Absolutely.
getting it out there. Your other friends who are runners, you're opening up the circle, and it's giving you an opportunity to
Sure.
talk about your seizures.
Absolutely.
And maybe expose them to another side of you that they weren't as aware of before.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I really love about what you're doing is it is showing that we can all be advocates and we can all find ways to fundraise, but to our own talents.
Of course.
And every bit helps, and it's not even every little bit, it is every single donation, every event, every piece of awareness. It all helps, and it doesn't have to be huge.
Sure.
And play to your strengths. You love running, runners, so you've created the Brain Troopers.
Right.
And I think that it's so attainable. Mm-hmm. It is reachable, and I think that it's so inspiring, and I hope it inspires other people who are listening today to find that activity, that talent that they have, and to build.
To use it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
to build something out of that. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my
thank
pleasure.
you
My pleasure,
for the advocacy work that you do, and I cannot wait to see where the Brain Troopers is headed in the years to come.
Hopefully in the right direction.
No doubt about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
What a joy to speak with Andrew today. His story is a great reminder of how epilepsy does not define a person. Through his trials with epilepsy, he remains a motivated young man bent on exploring ways to educate the general public on why research is so vital to help the 3.4 million Americans with epilepsy. If you are also interested in using your talents to help raise awareness and important funds for research, become a Cure Champion. Learn more about the Cure Champions program by visiting cureepilepsy.org/Cure Champions. Thanks so much.